Hi guys, Asmo here. I'm currently playing PoE and I thought I'm gonna make a quick video just to make like a no bullshit guide to defense. This league, a lot of people encountered a much harder content for the first time because it's basically forced upon them through Delirium. So maps are definitely harder and more rippy than before, and therefore like it same happened to me and I had to figure out better how to make my characters tanky, how to properly utilize all the layers of defense. So I just want to quickly explain that to people who are having trouble with their characters being too squishy, dying too often, and in general, like if you don't understand exactly how to make your character really tanky so that it's basically hardcore viable and you can run very difficult content without dying, then this is a video for you. So I'm gonna give you two examples because basically all builds can be put into one of those two categories. You can either make it a shield build. You can either use a shield if you're like a melee build or a caster, or you use a bow, right? So you either go with a shield or a bow if you want to make your character really tanky. Those are like the easy ways of doing it, and I'll explain how to basically add stuff to your character to make it more tanky without really sacrificing that much damage. Sure, you can sacrifice the dual wielding, but like even, for example, in Cell Found Hardcore, the first person to go to level 100 was Steel Mage, I think, and he was playing Lacerate, was it some duelist, either Gladiator or Champion, and he was playing with a shield and one-hander, right? To level 100, he was the first one. So naturally, that can be pretty fast, and it doesn't really hinder you that you're using a shield. So using a shield means that you're going to be using block, but let me first tell you, like, there are basically 3 or 4 main layers of defense. Let's say 4 layers of defense. The first one is very obvious. It's the effective health, right? So basically how much health you got between your life, energy shield, and mana if you're using MOM, right? If you're using Mind Over Matter in any way, then the mana will be added to it. And a lot of people are using MOM because of Archmage. So basically you add how much of those you have, like counting the percentage from that will be taken from the mana, and that's how much effective health you have. The more the better. Currently going ES is actually very good because of these new notables here. Energy from Not, the plus 100 to maximum energy shield from these, like you can have a bunch of those. You can have like 6 of them if you want, for example, on any build pretty much, and that adds so much energy shield that it doesn't really matter how much energy shield you get from the chest, so it gives you more options. In this case, I'm getting a lot of ES from my chest because I'm also playing Trickster, so here I get plus 1 to maximum energy shield per 6 evasion rating on body armor. So I'm getting this amount divided by 6, right? So that's like 300, so that's like 700 ES chest basically, with also like a, what is it, tier 3 cold res, and a bunch of evasion, of course, which I still benefit from. That's why I get also a decent chance to evade. So that's the first layer, right? Your effective health. Great. Another way to boost your effective health is through buffs, such as where do I have it? Here, Steel Skin, right? Steel Skin, you can use Molten Shell if you have a character that has a lot of armor, or you, for example, are playing a character with a lot of evasion and converting it to armor through Iron Reflexes. Then Molten Shell and Val Molten Shell are going to be very helpful. They're going to help you increase your total life pool by like temporarily having that buff up. So when you expect the damage, you're running around, you're like engaging a boss or metamorph or betrayal or something, you pop Val Molten Shell and you have way more health temporarily, right? So that's how you increase your effective health. Then the second layer of defense is Avoidance, right? So the remaining ones are Avoidance, Recovery, and Mitigation. So Avoidance is how you actually avoid taking the damage. So that would be your evasion, your dodge, and your block. In this case, this character is focused on block. As you can see, when I use I have here a trigger socketed spell when you use a skill with Tempest Shield, and that Tempest Shield gives me additional 6% chance to block attack damage and 6% chance to block spell damage because I have the Lethal Pride, which I'll explain in a second. But basically, if you look at if you look at my block chance to block attack damage 72, chance to block spell damage 74, and then when I pop roomies, it's capped at 75. You can get more than that if you get like an amulet or if you're playing gladiator, but that's enough. Roomies is very, very powerful this league. A lot of people are using it. This character actually should not be using it. I should just get from the tree or from, yeah, basically from the tree or from a shield. I should get a different shield and actually cap my block for spells and attacks without roomie, and that would free another spot for flask, and this way I could get, I guess, more evasion. So that's another thing I like. I'm still improving this character. It's in like the beginning stages, but that's what you can do also, right? So as you can see, with the flask app, I have capped block. So that's one way of doing it. The reason I have capped block very easily here is because of this timeless jewel, lethal pride. It makes it so that your keystones are becoming, if this is like Kiloava, right? You read here like commanded leadership over blah 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 warriors under Kiloava, and Kiloava gives you glancing blows. Glancing blows means that your chance to block is doubled, so basically you need half of the 75 to have 75, and then you take 50% of damage from blocked hits. And you'd say like, well, that's mathematically that would be the same thing, right? You get you take the same amount of damage over time on average, but it's made much better than it seems by this mode on a shield, which says recover up to 5% of energy shield when you block. So that means I block twice as much, I recover twice as much energy shield, which is why that is better than taking full damage but also blocking full damage half of the time, right? So that's why you do this. With this, you can also get recover percentage of life when you block and recover percentage of mana while you block. This is good, for example, like if you hit the life and mana and you're playing MOM character, that's amazing for that type of a character. I also have a lot of spell block on this shield. So that's how you play around with block. If you add that to your character, like recover your life or ES on block and use lethal pride and get glancing blows and then pick up a bunch of block, like where do I have block? Let's do this, block. Okay, here we got block. 6% chance to block spell damage. Here we got additional chance to block spell damage, so we're taking these shield nodes, which are pretty good for me anyway. We're taking this, which gives me a lot of spell block and some mana regen as well. And this is another one which gives me spell block, which gives me attack block and gives me chance to avoid elemental ailments while holding a shield, which is also another layer of defense I'm going to talk about in a moment. So we get a bunch of block here. And we are very tanky because of it. So that's the mitigation. Other than that, we got also a bunch of evasion, right? Let me refresh my flask, and then where do we have evasion rating? Press all the flask. So we got 50% chance to evade. Then we got a little bit of dodge. We got a little bit of dodge for spells, and we get a little bit of this character actually doesn't have that much dodge for attacks because I'm still building it up, but basically you want to get additional dodge on your chest. You can get dodge on your boots for attacks. You can also do something like go here, couple of nodes, and pick like Thread of Hope, I think is the jewel, and then without picking acrobatics you can actually pick the phase acrobatics. So that gives you like additional 30% chance to dodge spell hits. You can get huge amounts of dodge and evasion. You also get extra dodge from Trickster, for example, 3% chance to evade while you have energy shield. What else do you have here? Chance to can be stunned. 10% chance to dodge spell hits if you have energy shield. So you get a bunch of dodge and evasion from that as well. So you can keep adding that to this character. This character can become even more tanky. Like it's still in the beginning stages. So that's the avoidance, right? Next we go to mitigation. Mitigation is when you take the damage, how are you actually reducing the amount of the damage that you take? And those are, of course, the resistances. So currently, like the greatest mitigation you can achieve is probably like the Herald Abusing Guardian builds, which get like 90% of max LA res for all res and a lot of physical reduction. We have physical reduction mainly through the crab aspect. So I have here this wand which has aspect of the crab, which grants me 20% physical damage reduction. You can also run with flask, like this gives me 3000 armor. So normally my armor is like non-existent, but it jumps to 52% physical damage reduction. But this is like against white mobs of your level, basically, so I wouldn't look too much into that. But the aspect of the crab, something like that, something like Fortify, which I have here. I have level 20 Fortify on my shield charge, so whenever I'm like fighting a boss, I'm next to a boss and I'm basically tanking him with all of that stuff, like I tap the shield charge once, and I get the Fortify as well, which is another 20% reduced damage taken. So that's how we are mitigating the damage, right? There are many other ways. I'll show more ways of mitigating the damage on another character that I have, which is a bow character, because that's also something that like people completely are lost when it comes to like mitigating damage on a bow character that's evasion based and so on. So I'll show also that. So those are some of the ways of mitigating the damage. Another aspect of the defense, another layer of defense is recovery. Recovery is basically getting back the health, the energy shield that you have through like leech, regen, things like that, right? So here we have of course, recovery on block. We have recovery through the massive region of the essence drain, because if you pick Zealot's Oath, the region from the essence drain is applied to your energy shield. So in my case, that's a huge amount of region, especially when it spreads to other characters. Like I'm able to tank, like when I'm tanking something, like I basically pop the ED, let's say on a boss, right? I can pop the ED on the boss, and then I can just stand there with the Blight, also take less damage because of the channeling, right? And I'm just tanking, face tanking, like I face tanked Minotaur, for example, with a damage mod on the map as well. So this is a pretty tanky build. So that's some of the recovery. More recovery comes from Trickster. Patient Reaper recovers 2% of life, ES, and mana on kill. In my case, it's just basically the energy shield. But that's a really good amount of energy shield. Means that your ES is constantly just like going up. Like you're basically not dipping much because constantly you're recovering it. So other forms of it would be Leech. This character, of course, is damage over time character, so we're not leeching much. But that's another source of recovery that you can get. Another thing is, like, we're of course not using life flasks, but if you are a life-based character, like the next character I will show, you can also use life flasks to help you with recovery. So those are the layers, right? Another one which people tend to not think about too much is elemental ailments immunity, right? So you want to make sure that your flasks make you covered, like you're covered on the elemental ailments. So if you look at ailments, I have here this one, which gives me some spell block and attack block damage. I should probably get like one more of those, and that will give me like 50% chance to avoid elemental ailments. This is another 20, and then I can get another 30 on shaped boots, which is something that I would like to do. I would love like shaped boots with movement speed, attack dodge, and immunity to elemental ailments, because it can give you up to like 35 or something like that chance to avoid elemental ailments. And if your chance to avoid elemental ailments is 100%, then you cannot be shocked or ignite or chilled. Right now I'm using the dream fragments because I'm trying to be safe, but this should be replaced later on for another ring that will give me like a lot of energy shield, for example, and that's how you make up for example, losing energy shield from replacing one of those with one of those. Yeah. What else about this character? Yeah, other than that, you want to have like shock and ignite removal on flask, and also you want to have like curse removal. I love running with like the quartz flasks right now because of there being so many mobs, especially with the delirium. So quartz flasks are very useful right now for the phasing and the chance to dodge. You definitely like the chance to dodge and attacks and spell hits, and like max duration and remove curses. That's what I like to do on from this flask, right? So let me move on now to the second character. Okay, so this is my second character. It's a Pathfinder, which uses Scourge Arrow. This character, I'm like very proud of how tanky I made it, especially with being a bit greedy and like running double circle of nostalgia and so on. This character is an example of how to make a bow character tanky. I will include the POB to this version of the character in the description of this video. But so let's go again through the forms of defense. We have pretty low health pool, actually, like 5.6 health is pretty low. Normally you want above 6,000 life for this type of a character, but because we have no life on the rings, that's why it's pretty low. We have a lot of life on the other items though, and also we can't get that much. Well, we're actually getting the decent amount from the tree. So let's go through all the layers of defense. So first, avoidance, right? In terms of avoidance, we are relying here on evasion and dodge, right? As you can see, like 50% chance to evade, 65 dodge attacks, 52 dodge spell hits. That's decent avoidance. It could be made better, but it's pretty decent. We have here, like for example, chance to dodge attack on hits. On these boots, these are pretty good boots. We have here chance to dodge spell hits on this chest, chance to dodge attack hits on this chest, and basically we're getting a bunch of evasion also and dodge. We get dodge from the phase acrobatics and acrobatics as well. This is a great node. It gives me like chance to evade, chance to dodge. I also get frenzy charges from this through the green nightmare. So we're getting a bunch of avoidance that way. This character is like dodge and evasion based, right? So that means if we're going dodge and evasion, most likely we're not gonna be stacking armor, block, or energy shield, right? Because we got those reduced through acrobatics. So we rely on dodge and energy shield. Next aspect of the defense is the mitigation. So for mitigation, we actually also have the crab aspect, right? As you can see, I got a level 20 aspect of the crab skill on the quiver. This is a quiver I crafted myself. I crafted actually every single piece of gear for this character myself, except for the uniques, which are the Dark Scorn and the Circles of Nostalgia. Everything else I crafted myself with fossils. So you can see in path of building all of those items. So that's one layer of mitigation. We have the aspect of the crab. Another layer of mitigation is fortify. And now you might be wondering, like, how the hell do I get fortify on this character, right? And I get the fortify on this character through a flask. Basically, you can anoint a hidden passive, which is called Hardened Scars. You need for this golden, black, and teal, I guess, oil, and this gives you additional recovery from flasks, and also fortify during effect of any life flask. So you have to cheat a little bit, because obviously you're gonna be at full life a lot of the time, and you can't, like, that flask will, you press your life flask, also maybe you have an instant flask, basically you have zero effect of that, right? So what you want is a hybrid flask, because hybrid still will count as a life flask. And then you want something like mana recovery occurs instantly at the end of flask effect, which means the flask effect still is working, and that allows you to also get like 66% increased amount recovered, which means you're getting a lot of recovery for the life. The flask keeps rolling. As you can see, when I press the flask, the effect keeps going here for over 5 seconds, and you can also increase that through different things. Like for example, this node gives you increased flask duration. Being a Pathfinder, you can also get, let's see, duration. You can get also these nodes if you're going, but I suggest only doing this if you're going for like speedy map clear or something like that. Otherwise, I suggest taking Master Alchemist, but I'll talk about it in a second. So we're getting Fortify, and that's another source of mitigation, right? And then the biggest source of mitigation here, something that you want to do on this type of a character, is Glorious Vanity, okay? If you get the Glorious Vanity Timeless Jewel, not sure how much they cost, maybe like 50 chaos. Depends on like the roll on it. With the name of Sibaqua, that gives you Divine Flesh in your keystones. And Divine Flesh means that all the damage is taken bypasses Energy Shield, which is a drawback, but we don't like, we have like 12 Energy Shields, so who cares? But 50% of the elemental damage is taken as chaos damage, and you get plus 10 to maximum chaos resistance. So that means if we get plus 10 to maximum chaos resistance, that means we can get now 85, and then with an extra gem here, Born of Chaos, we get plus 3, so that is 88, and then on the quiver plus 2% to maximum chaos resistance, that means 90. 90 is the cap for all resistances. You can never get more than 90%, but we get 90% chaos resistance here. That means that half of the elemental damage we take, which is already mitigated by you know, the half that it doesn't go to chaos is mitigated by your normal resistances, which are 75 or 76 here. Half of that goes to chaos resistance, which is gonna mitigate 90% of it. And believe me, this makes a big difference, because even though you think like, okay, what's 75, 90, only like 15 points more, of 15% more, so you only take like 15% less damage. No, actually you take much less damage, because the higher you go in terms of resistances, the more effective each percentage of resistances. So for example, going from 75 to 76 is not as big of a deal as going from 89 to 90. Like going from 89 to 90 is way bigger than going from like 0 to 1, or going from 10 to 11, or 70 to 71. That's why you really want to push it to 90%. And other than that, other than mitigating the elemental damage through Divine Flesh, we're also mitigating physical damage through Darkscorn. Darkscorn gives us physical damage, like 25% of physical damage from hits is taken as chaos damage. That means it's like 25% of damage that we take that is physical from hits basically is reduced by 90%, so we only take like 10% of it. And then we also get extra 9% of physical damage from hits taken as chaos damage. You can get this up to 15%, but I got tired of crafting this chest. This is a very good chest, and it took a lot of fossils to craft this. Like I spent maybe like, I don't know, maybe like 6, 7, maybe 8 exalts on this chest. You also need a base, which is like, you can see it's double influence, is the Hunter and the Warlord, because I wanted to have the minus 15% to total mana cost, which means my Scourge Arrow is free. It's such a good quality of life, like to have your Scourge Arrow free. I definitely recommend getting a chest like this with like minus 15 to total mana cost, because I also want to anoint like minimum endurance charge on this, or like get another way of getting endurance charges as well. So that's something that I definitely recommend. So we got minus 15 to total mana cost, increased movement speed, bunch of evasion. We get some extra chaos res, dodge, and the physical damage from hits taken as chaos damage. And if you get this up to 15%, if you get like a perfect chest with 15%, then that gives you basically 40%. You can also get a helmet, but that's kind of ridiculous because I don't think you can craft it. You can only get it from temple. But that can give you up to like maybe 8%. So you can get like almost 50% physical damage taken as chaos damage instead, and mitigated by that huge 90% of chaos resistance that you have. So that's a whole bunch of mitigation. And then recovery is actually the weakness of this build. This build has very weak recovery. I got Brush with Death notable that gives me 10% to damage over time multiplier, which is amazing, and then recovering some life on kill. So I definitely recommend that. This is like these are the ideal necessary cluster jewels that you need for this build basically, and other than that, recovery comes from the flask, and I'm not sure if I have any leech, but the leech doesn't do shit because I'm doing mostly poison damage, right? So the recovery is pretty low, but we have very good mitigation, decent avoidance. Also we got cast when damage taken. That's also something to mention. Cast when damage taken with temp chains and steel skin, so that so that helps us take a little bit less damage, so that if we take damage, the temp chains also helps our poison. So either we're running through with like the Witchfire Brew and the Plague Bearer through, or we're doing basically the temp chains when we're being hit. So that's it basically. That's how you make any character tanky. As you can see, like both of these characters I cleared, I clear T16s, and I do Delirium in all of the maps I do, and also I cleared like Awakener level 8 on both characters, like Delve depth like more than 200 bosses, right? I did Delve bosses above like depth level 200 with these builds, so they're pretty tanky, but they both can be improved. You will find PoE links in the description. I hope this video helps you and like helps you understand a little bit more about defenses and how to make your characters tanky. Thank you for watching and see you next time.